Ryan Bourque, newest assistant coach of the Providence Bruins, joins us on this Monday morning. Ryan, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate it. Congratulations on this newest job for you. I kind of want to start with the process, the journey, if you want to get into details about. I'm always so curious about how coaches interview and who you have to meet with and, you know, what kind of things you have on your resume, because it's obviously Googleable, but what are you kind of showing in an interview? Why don't you take us through the process and up until when you finally got hired?
So it was pretty unexpected, to be honest. It was probably about halfway through the spring. I was at Cushing, and I think the hockey world in general, a lot of it is just kind of through the grapevine, word of mouth. And I was aware that Matty Thomas was leaving Providence and, you know, going on to college at a place where that was his alma mater. And you know, Dustin Stuck, who's actually the trainer for the Bruins, and his father was still is, longtime trainer with the Hershey Bears, and got to know Dusty growing up. And he just reached out and said, would you have any interest in going through the process with Providence? And, you know, that's kind of a loaded question for me. It's an obvious dream come true to get the opportunity to work for the Bruins organization, and you know, an organization that I grew up being fortunate enough to go witness firsthand kind of what a day is like being in that organization. And, you know, it was a pretty easy answer for me. An opportunity like that, absolutely, I would be willing to go through the process. And I think in 2025, it's a little different now than it used to be, but it was basically just 2 Zoom interviews. And then I think the process itself was, you know, a little longer than I anticipated. But, you know, a night after the draft, I got the call from Evan, who was unbelievable through the whole process in terms of communication and transparency. And he offered me the position, and you know, that was a pretty good night, to say the least.
Well, congratulations, and I'm glad it's a dream come true. I feel like guys who have former playing experience, it's becoming more popular for them to get into these coaching positions to really speak to the development of guys. So what would you say that you pull from your previous experience that you really want to stand out for your coaching style to add to this Providence Bruins team?
So I think for me as a player, I was fortunate enough, you know, to play in a ton of leagues, but also experience, you know, growing up in diapers, being able to go to the rink. And, you know, as I got a little bit older and was able to process, you know, seeing what these guys who are the best at what they do treat every day like. And I think growing up with a Hall of Fame father, I was 10 years old when he retired. So I think a lot of kids that had dads that were successful in the NHL, a hard part of that is when they're on the road and when they're traveling. And, you know, it's awesome to be able to experience those things, but you don't get as much alone time with, you know, with your father that I'd say a kid that has a dad that's, you know, working from home. So when I was 10 years old, he retired, and from then till, you know, I was 15, we were inseparable and kind of attached at the hip. And I think those are the years that I was able to retain, you know, so much in terms of the lessons and, you know, just the father-son time that was very valuable and very special to me. So I was soaking everything I could like a sponge. And to go along with that, he was able to coach me at those ages. So, you know, playing youth hockey and then going to prep school and then being fortunate enough to go to the national program. I was committed to University of New Hampshire, and it was a super tough decision with Dick Umili there and how great he was with me. But I decided to go to Quebec City and play in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And I spent 2 years there. It was a great experience with Patrick Waugh, who was one of my dad's former teammates and close friends. And then from there, I was drafted by the Rangers, and I spent about 5 years playing in Hartford with their minor league affiliate. Spent some time with the Rangers as well, which was an incredible experience. And then I bounced around to different organizations after that, being Hershey, Bridgeport, and just finishing 4 games in Charlotte. So definitely touched a lot of leagues, got a ton of experience, but also in terms of the position that I'm in right now, I was able to grind in the American League for almost 10 years. So I know what it takes to get to that level, and even being a leader in the American League when I was playing, there was so many different prospects coming in and out. And as you kind of graduate in the American League from prospect to veteran to kind of on your way out, you experience all the different realms of pro hockey. So I think that really benefits me going into my new position with Providence in terms of helping these guys do what it takes and learn the intangibles, not only on ice but off ice. It's a grind, and it takes a lot to get to that ultimate level, and that's what I plan on doing.
I know a lot of the guys we've had on our show, or just even when I'm in the Bruins room, and by the way, so much to take from your answer over there. I want to touch on a couple of points, but they talk about you always have respect for your leaders or your coaches, but when someone's been through it, it just helps so much more with that communication style. Just want to bring up something you mentioned about your dad retiring when you were 10. Even Patrice Bergeron, when he retired, his kids were really young, but four of them, and he's like, I'm missing out on so much. It's time to be home. And he was at that age, and obviously he's getting closer with them. So wanted to touch on, you said you really learned a lot from him there in terms of what you're going to apply to your coaching style. Was he ever vocal about what worked for him? And we know the league has changed since he was in his prime, and coaching has changed. Now it's more of what they're calling a players league, and communication is becoming more and more important, like real direct communication. But did he ever give you tips or stories about what coaches he got along with and what their style was? And can you apply that to what you're going to be doing?
For sure. That's a great question. I think, so much of what you retain is kind of in those little moments, like just those car rides from, our house to hockey practice, and doing that on repeat for however many practices you have in a year. And just those little conversations where, you're 10, 11, 12, and you're just glued to those answers, and it's kind of spontaneous and almost just organic, where some of the best information and some of the best little tidbits are just in natural conversation. So I think in terms of what I took from my dad, when he played, even afterwards when he coached me, it's maintaining balance, never being satisfied, but also just being even keeled with it. Like, you're never going to be perfect, and that's okay, but it's okay to strive for that every single day and trying to get the most out of each and every day. I think you're exactly right. This generation is kind of transitioned into, you have your old school mentality of the way things used to be, and then there was kind of this little hybrid for a point in time. And now I think nowadays the kids, they want to have an opinion and they want to be heard, and that's okay. That's good. That means they're curious. That means they want to help be a part of the solution. And I think communication is just so key, and just getting to know the players on a personal level, not just, trying to get to know the hockey player, but get to know the person, figure out, things that work for them, things that don't work. And, our job is to coach them. So no matter how, or no matter what it takes, to get them to understand, just being able to be patient with that, and also letting them have a voice, letting them, be a part of the solution.
I think it's huge that the league is now finding ways to let players have a voice, especially younger players. You're seeing them speak out more and kind of like vouching to have playing time earlier. And that kind of speaks to the development and the development timeline. Have you seen a change in development timelines in players, or is there a change that you would like to see when it comes to getting a player ready to take that next step? Because you talked about witnessing the grind and your own experience in the AHL, and a lot of players that are younger now kind of want that opportunity and that chance sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think for sure. But it's a little strange. Like, it's taking longer to get there. But once they do get there, they've gone through a lot of what it takes to be able to make an impact right away. So I think you look at college hockey and how much less you're seeing true freshmen able to, make an impact right away. And I think the way things are changing through junior hockey, the way things are changing through development, in your teenage years, I think you're having a longer runway when it comes to development. And I think when you're ready to turn professional, like even rewind 10, 15 years ago, the amount of kids that are signing early out of college, or even junior when they're 19 years old, they're just not ready for it. But I think this way it allows them more of a runway to, mature as a person, as a kid, and also get the development on ice that they need in order to make an impact right away. And it's okay to have a voice. Like, every kid is going to believe in themselves. And, I think not a long time ago, but there was almost a notion that you need to earn your stripes, you need to pay your dues. If someone's prepared and ready to make an impact right away, then why not give them that opportunity?
You have some experience, from what we understand, correct me if I'm wrong, with James Hagens and Will Moore in the U.S. national development team when you were there and they were there at the same time. Bruins fans very excited, like to Kasey's point, Bruins fans want to see these guys sooner, but obviously the team wants to play it right. We talked a lot on the show about a player's personality. If they're innately confident, then if they get called up and down, it might not rock their confidence if they keep getting up and down. But if someone isn't, if someone's a little insecure, not feeling good about their game, they get called up and down, that can kind of slow down their development. So you really got to play it out person to person. But do you have any insight on those two guys and what they can eventually, if they make it, bring to the Boston Bruins?
Yeah, for sure. I coached James in Plymouth with the U.S. under-18 team. Got to know him a ton. He was, it was a great team, and they were all unbelievable. I was kind of the buffer. I was the second assistant there, so I was in the locker room with the guys. My stall was in there, so I would, put my skates on and go out and practice with them. But I really had a firsthand look at the entire locker room, so it was a super cool experience for me. But was just enthralled with James's performance, that year. I think he's a charming kid. He's super popular in the room. He's motivated every day. He's one of those kids that he goes out there and it's like he's going on the pond every single day. It's just a natural detail in his game through practice and then in games as well. I think when he was playing his best hockey that year, it was the most important times of our season. I think the under-18 tournament in Finland, it was some of the best hockey that I've seen at that age level. And I think he's the type of kid the type of player that he has the puck the entire game, but he's not a selfish player. When he's playing at his best, he does possess the puck for a good majority of the game, being a centerman, but he distributes so well, and he's almost faster when he has the puck. Just his puck handling ability and the ability to be aware of everything that's going on in the ice. He's a super super special player, and I think the situation with him being at BC, I was watching the draft, and as those picks got closer and closer to Boston's pick, he was still available, and selfishly, I was hoping that we'd be able to get him, and as luck would have it, we did. And as far as William Moore goes, he was on the under 17 team, so I didn't get the chance to coach him, but those two teams are together all the time at the rink every day. So just in conversations and getting to know him off the ice, he's an incredible kid. And, just as a fan and observing games throughout the year that the 17s were playing, he's a super special player with some definite offensive upside, and another familiar face that we'll be seeing in Hockey East at BC. So they'll get the chance to play together, and hopefully that can continue through the next decade.
Hopefully. Sophia mentioned eager fans, and of course a big topic that's been going on since draft night is when we will potentially see Hagens in a Bruins sweater. But more importantly, you talk about him being charming, and attached to his name, they talk about how well he weathers pressure on the ice. But have you seen leadership tendencies out of Hagens that just will translate off the ice as well, that Bruins fans will have to look forward to?
Yeah, for sure. I think, leadership comes in so many different ways, and I don't know if James is necessarily the type to just, voice up in the room and make a statement that way. But I think just the way he attacks each and every day through practice, through games, and just taking charge when he needs to take charge. I think leadership is kind of a maturation process. Similar to your game, but as you get older, you kind of fill into the type of leader that you're going to be. And I wouldn't say that James is like an alpha by any means, but he is always going to do the right things for the team. And like I said, he's a gamer. His best hockey comes out when it matters most. And I think that's a super special quality to have.
I'm so excited about your read on these guys, just like hearing what you've said. And obviously they've grown since, and they're going to continue to grow. But this is very exciting intel that you're giving us. I want to ask you a little bit about Ryan Mujanel. Your head coach with the Providence Bruins. I've known him for a little bit since being with the organization. He's such a riot. In Canada, the cliche, we call someone like that a beauty. So he's a real beauty. And he's just a big jokester, but I know obviously he takes things very seriously, but he's very well known as a coach that players absolutely love. How well did you know him? How well do you know him? And what do you think your relationship with him is going to be like once you start?
So going into the interview, I think we met 2 previous times at kind of just coaches panel things. But as you know, the world of hockey is so small, and in terms of what I've heard about him, similar to that, I think there's a really good balance to, having a good time and also being serious, like you said, when it's game time. And I'm just super honored and just really looking forward to being able to learn from him each and every day. I think in pro hockey, similar to when I was playing as an extension of the coaching staff, being a leader, I think that's where you can soak the best information is just in the daily habits and the day-to-day. So I think to be able to be a part of this organization, that's what excites me most, to learn from Muj every single day, and also Trent Whitfield. And, every staff needs to be collaborative, and I think bouncing ideas off one another and just trying to find a solution is where you improve and where you get better in the day-to-day. So I couldn't be more excited to go to battle with those 2 every single day, and I just really look forward to it and can't wait to get going.
I think Kasey's got a question for you, but a quick comment. We had Muj on our show, a couple weeks ago, and he started the show we were like, hey, thanks for your time. And he was like, leaning in, pretending to be joking. He's like, you guys are getting me out of yard work, so go as long as you want. Like, that's how he started the show. And I'm like, yeah, this guy's the best. He's a good time. And I know it's different when, someone's a bench boss and they got to be serious once in a while, but seems like a joy to be around. Kasey, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. A lot of personality. I was glad I got to meet him through you. I mean, to that note, any players you're excited to work with? Because I think that's something that's so spectacular about the AHL that we actually talked about beforehand is just like you've got guys who are working so hard to take that next step, but it's just as important to get those reps at the AHL level. We saw some of these kids get opportunities towards the end of this season. So any names that jump off the page for you?
Yeah, I think that, you always, and being out of the American Hockey League for, about 5 years now, I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to coach in the East Coast Hockey League with South Carolina. But you're always looking at past seasons. And I think if you look at both Providence on paper, but also what they were able to do in the playoffs, taking Charlotte to 5 games. And, that's the team that's in the finals there at the end. So they're right there. I think the way that Mooj and Witter, prepares them. And it's funny because when I played in the American League, Providence would always be the same way every year. And it was, they'd start out kind of even keeled on flat line, and then by February and March they were always going up and being ready for playoffs. So I think that's a really good trajectory. I think that's a really good way to pace out your season, and you always want to be playing your best hockey come April. And in terms of the prospects, I think there's a ton of players that are going to be coming in from college, and a guy like Bancroft and Poitras. Hopefully he's in Boston and succeeding up there. But a player of that caliber and a player of that talent, to get the opportunity to even be a small part of that would be awesome. But like I said, I think he's got a trend line that's going to be a long-time NHLer, so we'll see what happens with that.
All right, before I give it back to Soph, I'm going to do a quick little Hockey Hub coaching test. Sophia and I skated this weekend. Do you have any tips for us to ride our outside edges without completely wiping out? Because
it was hard. It was really hard. We're learning
hard.
edge work, and I did not like it, okay? It was not
Help
good.
us.
Really humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some of the chairs are for my 2 boys. I got a 2 and a 4-year-old, and it's actually hilarious. Like, I've coached hockey now for not a crazy long time, but for 5 years, and I cannot teach my 2 boys how to skate. Like, I don't even know where to start. And in terms of the on ice drills that I'm doing with the teenagers this past year, like when it comes to edge work and trying to teach them the basics and the fundamentals, it's super challenging.
It is.
Wild.
It is. I mean, I think at that age, just give them a puck and a stick and let them chase and battle it out. I mean, I know 2 is still a little wobbly. Maybe they can do the edge work a little later. But, like, yeah, dude, for a almost 40-year-old woman, it was very humbling for me to be like, what the heck? Am I even good? Have I even been on skates before? We want to let you go, but I have one more to wrap, and I just want to kind of bring the interview together, the whole thing together, everything we talked about. You talked about your experience in Boston with the Bruins organization, obviously your father's and the impact he had and still has here, coaching, leadership, relationships, all that I want to tie into something I learned. I've only been in Boston for 6 years, but just how important the community here is and how important it is to give back and to just be part of it. That's something your father's still doing, you guys are still doing with the Bourque Family Foundation. So is that something that you're going to instill in some of the younger guys, just to teach them, like, hey guys, it's not just about being good players on the ice, but being good character people when you're out in the world as well? Is that part of your coaching regimen? And can you explain to the fans how important that is?
For sure. I think, when you're playing hockey at the level that some of these guys are playing at, it's a privilege. And I think you have the opportunity to reach an audience and really influence the community in a way that is so positive. And that's something that, was instilled in all 3 of me and my siblings from a young age, from my mom and my dad. And even, my dad was captain of the Bruins for such a long period of time. And, that's a full-time job in itself, but it's also a responsibility and a privilege for my mom. And I think, what they were able to do in the community here in Boston, and even after his retirement with, the charity work and now having our own Bourque Family Foundation, it's super important to us. And I think the coolest part of that is being able to extend that to the generations. And now we all have kids and they're a part of those events. And even when I was playing in the American Hockey League, I always tried to make it a point to make a difference in the community that I was in, whether that was Hartford or Bridgeport. You can make a difference. I just remember all the Christmas visits to the hospitals and the cool events that were planned. Listen, you go to the rink at 7:30, 8 o'clock, you're out of the rink by 12 or 1, and then you have the rest of the day. So you got to fill those days up with things that make a difference. And that's definitely something that I plan on harping on in Providence. And, it's a special privilege that us professional athletes and coaches have.
Well, listen, based on not only that answer, but everything you've kind of said today, one, we're very excited that you're going to be part of this Bruins organization, the Providence Bruins' newest assistant coach, and no doubt that your resume on and off the ice and your character will bring a lot to this team. So congratulations again, and maybe we'll check in you kind of mid-season. But for now, hope you have a good summer preparing, and we'll check in a couple of months. But Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, guys. That was a blast.
Awesome. Best of luck. We're going to send it to break over here on the Hockey Hub. Kasey and I will be back to discuss the Bruins schedule, which was released earlier in the week or before the weekend. We'll talk about that, some other things right after this.